right? Okay, so here is the thing, right? As we're attending this class, okay, make out time to, if you are in the class and you listen, not being in the class and doing other things, being distracted. If you're in the class and you were distracted and you know you did not follow up from beginning to the end, I would recommend you watch the video. And by the way, I've completed chapter 10, and then I'm merging the videos now because there were two heavy files. It's taking some time to merge. Once that merging is complete, I'll upload it tonight before I go to bed so that you guys will have access to chapter 10. Okay, there's an energy we have right now. Imagine 7 of us on the call right now. In the entire Telegram group, we are over 20 right now, or almost 20. So if we utilize the momentum very well, if we take advantage of this energy and the momentum, we are going to, as soon as I am done with all the 4 modules, everybody will be done, ready to write their exams. Now, 6, are you ready to share your screen, please?
Yes.
I want to show you guys my plan, my vision for you guys, okay? So that you guys understand why I'm emphasizing practice question. After every class, watch the video again, practice question. Can you go ahead and share your screen?
Can you see my screen?
Yes, so now open life insurance. Okay, no, don't worry.
Okay.
This is, okay, so you guys see here now, this is life insurance. Okay, this is life insurance on the screen, yeah? There is study notes, there is study manual audio. There is audio you can actually listen to. But this audio is a typical reading of the study notes. Okay? Now, everybody can do this on your own. You can just go, listen to and do this on your own. But what is the value proposition that I'm bringing for you guys? The value I'm bringing for you guys is the explanation of the key principles. You see, when we read it together and I explain it, you are not trying to figure it. You get the perspectives, you get the rationale right off the back. And I can tell you that if you watch the video very well, even if you did not read this note, you can go to the next step, which is your flashcards, and then do your chapter by chapter quizzes. So here's the thing. When you are in class like this, if you listen very well, you can even attempt the quizzes of that chapter. Like we did chapter 10 this morning. We didn't finish. Let's say I've uploaded chapter 10 now. You watch the video. You can go and do the flashcards and then do the chapter by chapter quizzes for chapter 10. You're going to test your knowledge and then you review the answers, right? And then there's need to know videos. Then there's exam prep bootcamp. You can follow these steps and then write your mock exams. Once you write your mock exam and your score is well over 70, then you are good to proceed to certification level. Okay, so this is the path, guys. Okay, so that once I'm done with life insurance taxation tomorrow, during the week, before our next class on Saturday, my expectation it is that you guys would have done your certification on life insurance. Make sense?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, madam? Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, please.
So, these certifications, can we do each, like the course, can we do each chapter by chapter, or everything will be done once?
No, so the chapter by chapter quizzes is just to drive in your understanding of each chapters. Okay?
No, sorry, not the chapters. We have different
The
topics.
modules,
So,
you mean? The 4
yes,
modules?
modules. Yes.
So why I would recommend that when you finish life insurance, do the certification for life insurance, because you don't want to commingle the knowledge in your head.
Okay,
Because
perfect. That's what I wanted to know.
if you finish life insurance and you didn't write the certification and we layer segregated fund on top of it, confusion will set in.
Okay.
Confusion will set in. You now be wondering, okay, which one is this one? But when you finish that one, see, here is my plan for you guys. Once we follow this plan and we finish life insurance, you guys write the certification. The next is segregated funds. We do segregated fund, we write the certification. Then we do accident and sickness, write the certification. Then we do ethics, we write the certifications. Once all the certifications are done, we gather together like this and we book the provincial exams.
Okay.
Once the provincial exams are booked, because we are booking together, even though you are different provinces, we will book life insurance, we'll book like that. Then I come in with a final prep for you guys, module by module. So if it's life insurance that is coming first, we target life insurance. I do a lot of practice questions for you guys. You write the life insurance. Then the next one, if it's sec form, we face that one, practice question. Then we write that one. You see, I'm here to support you guys, but I need you guys to encourage me. Encourage me. When you write your quizzes, post it in the group. Let's keep the fire. Otherwise, I will finish this class, nothing is done, and then to what ends? Right, guys? Okay. Enough is said already. Let's move on. And by the way, I'm very, very excited right now because the way this document has been dealing with me every time I scroll. So now I've moved it to my drive, and then now I'm scrolling smoothly. It's not jumping on me. Yeah. Anyways, now we're in chapter 11, recommending an insurance policy. Remember in chapter 10, we're talking about applications, the content of application paperwork, needs analysis, and everything. When you have gathered all this information, how do you know which policy to recommend to a client? How do you know? But it's not complicated, guys. So don't worry, don't overthink this thing, okay? Evaluate the probability, severity, and duration of risk. Very important. It will be your job as the agent to assess the severity of risk, the probability that it will occur, and its financial impact. That's very straightforward. You see, the thing I love about this chapter 10, this chapter 11, you see, it's smooth, it flows. It's not this thing. So we can even read through it and you guys will still get it, right? Now we have a table here, you know, that risk assessment matrix. Now it talks about severity, you know, probability. You guys, give me one quick second. Someone just came to see me and I need to give him a key. Let me pause. Okay, so we have the matrix, okay, of our risk analysis table here. It talks about severity, probability, and financial impact. Let me see, is there, okay, there's none on this end, right? So now, that's, when it comes to the severity of the risk, what is the severity, what is the probability and all that? So again, this is just a table. I'm not going to spend time on that. So let's move on to the risk of death is based on the following factors. It's based on age, it's based on gender, it's based on health, and it's also based on lifestyle risk, okay? Now, current age and gender, as discussed in chapter 1, we discussed this one, guys, remember? You see, we discussed this one in chapter 1. Women live longer than men. And as is obvious, the chance of death increase with age. That's very true. Okay? Now look at, you know, the age for men, you see, and female. This one is what? Table of odds of dying for male and female. The odds of dying before the next birthday are in one. Look at this. This is the odds of dying. You know, age 10, age 20, age 30. You see that? For age 50, age 60, and so on and so forth. Okay, the source of these statistics is from Canada life expectancy and other elements of the life table of Canada in all provinces Prince Edward's Islands, and also, and then there's a link there as well. Now, in order to determine the odds, simply divide 1 by the probability of death. Now, we also go back to that, our case study. Do you guys remember our case study, Becky? And what's that guy's name again? And Derek, right? All right. So back to our case study. Derek is currently 47 years old, while Becky is only 38. And based on the same data set that was used to produce table 11.2, that is an average for a Canadian male and female, there is probability of dying before his next birthday is 0.231. So they're not going to ask you this probability or whatever. So they might give you the numbers and stuff like that. There are some things that might not come in your exams. And that's why practicing those chapter by chapter quizzes is very important, because if you're going to see, and the question you see in the chapter by chapter, those are the questions, exact same type of question you see for your certification. But when it comes to provision, it may not be the exact, but it will be similar, okay? And Becky's probability of dying before her next birthday is 0.062%, which represent the odds of 1 in 1613. Okay. Another approach is to present the probability of death occurring before a certain age. So now, personal and family health history. Now we've looked at what the probability of death, but right now we are going into what personal and family history. We've looked at current age and gender. We've looked at current age and gender. And sometimes when I run a quote for husband and wife, and the men's policy illustration is so expensive, and they're like, why? This is not fair. Look, I always use my children as an example. My youngest child, my son, is 4 years old. But at the time we did the universal life policy for all our kids, he was a lot younger. And his policy is more expensive than my first daughter, who is 19 currently, but at the time he was younger than that, you see. So even as for children, male children still pay higher than girls, okay? And that's why if you have children, consider doing universal life for them on time. That way they will not pay as much. And then you can, set it up, paid off for a limited time period. Anyways, that's on the side. Now, personal and family health history. Let's talk about that one. Health problem experienced by individuals. See, you see that in this application paperwork here, there's a lot of health history questions right here, right? Because that is, let me see. Okay, let me not go there because of time. Okay, there's a lot of health question in that. Health problems experienced by the individuals or conditions that appears to be genetic may impact the probability of death. Okay, in the case of Derek, Derek's fathers and 2 of his uncles were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes before the age of 50. His father is still living at age 72, but both uncles died in their 60s. While Derek is fine so far and of average health, he knows that he is overweight, and that he is predisposed to develop the same disease. This will increase his odds of dying before his next birthday. So that is when it comes to what? Family health history. Now, the next one is lifestyle risk. Let's talk about this one. I don't think at this time we are no longer strange to lifestyle risk anymore, because this is popping up everywhere. We see it all around us, right? Let's talk about it anyways. The lifestyle choices people make affect their probability of death, such as smoking, substance abuse, bad driving habits, frequent travel, especially to certain countries, hazardous vocations. So these are lifestyle. You see, when you hear lifestyle, you just think about your things, that decisions that people make about what they do. You see, bad driving. So that should be easy to figure out, right, guys? Now we move on to financial impact of financial impact of the, you see, we don't like to talk about these things, but the question is not if, the question is when, right? You see, the more I even do this, the more a lot of things is hitting me. Like we've got lots of work to do. We need to go out there and talk to people about this stuff. It is essential for the agents with the advisor to help the client understand who will be affected by the death of their clients and in what ways. You see, you look at, if you, for many of you on the call with me yesterday, there was a slide that talked about the S curve, right? That S curve that have stages of life, the various decisions and planning and things we hope to do to a certain point, and then when we are out of active work life, that's all those costs start diminishing, right? So that is a perfect situation. That is an all things being equal situation, right? But where risk comes in is, what if something happened while you are still building? While you are still working on those plans? Yes, you've got the plans. Things are going where you are saving for your kids' educations. You are paying your mortgage, everything. You are living up to expectations. All things being equal, things going on smoothly. But what happens when there is an interruption in your plans, as perfect as it may be? That's what all this is all about. That is the risk we are talking about. You see? Now, who is going to be affected when those perfect plans you have? You're working so hard. You wake up early, you have a dream. You are not sitting down wishing. You have a dream and you are going at it, you're getting it. Kudos to you. But when there's an interruption in those plans, and you are not available anymore to do those things, who are the people that get affected by your absence? If it comes to loss, how would survivors support themselves? If a caregiver was lost, could the survivor afford the cost of care in order to go to work? If there are debts, such as mortgage on the family home, how will they be paid? How will income taxes resulting from the deemed disposition of property at death be paid? How will funeral expenses and other expenses relating to death be paid? Let's go back to our case study again. The biggest financial impact associated with Derek's death will be the loss of his employment income, which currently amounts to $8,400 per month after tax. His death may also result in the calling of that $350,196 mortgage and his $41,000 car loan, meaning that payment will be required in full, and the passing of the cottage to his children may result in a tax liability of $175,000. You guys see the word they use here? The mortgage, calling. This means requesting payment in full. Because Derek's wife is a stay-at-home mom. So she doesn't have any qualifying ability to carry that mortgage if she was to be if they were to assess her to continue that mortgage upon renewal. You see all that, right? All these are risks associated with what? Impacts of financial in the case of that, in the event of that. Okay. Now let's talk about duration of risk. Okay? The insurance agent needs to understand how long will the financial ramifications resulting from the death of the client last. Some risks are of a limited duration, others are lifelong. For instance, A car loan may be paid off in 4 years. Child support obligations last until the child is at least 18 years of age, or 22, or even 23 if enrolled in a post-secondary education and dependent. Lifelong if the child is dependent due to mental incapacity or physical disability. See that? Let me take a quick look to see if there's anybody in the waiting room. Okay, nobody is there. So that's pretty much straightforward. Let's talk about other risk associated with one dying unexpectedly. There are other risks aside from death that the clients could be exposed to, such as disability, illness, and unemployment, which may impact the client's ability to pay the premium on the life insurance policy. You see, this is other risk. This is not death right now. But you see, if you've in this country, if you've been here for a little while, you know that even if your job is permanent job, it's not guaranteed, right? And the way they lay people off here is not,
Yeah.
there's no mercy. You
Yes.
can come to work and then the next thing you are being escorted out. Not to any fault of yours. It's just that you are laid off, you're laid off. It's in this country I learned that laying off is not a big deal. You know, back home when you are laid off, there's this feeling like, how can you understand? You feel like you are less, it's hard. So when layoff occurs back home, it's a big deal, right? And it's always, it's not always in mass or stuff like that in many cases. But here I learned, I don't know about you guys, but I learned that, man, layoff is nothing. It's not a big deal. So to the employer that is laying off, to them, it's not a big deal. And then to you, it's when it's your first time or whatever, you can see it as a big deal. But if you've been around for a while, you know that it's normal. You move up to the next, everybody keeps moving on. But in the mean, while you are that in between, in that transition phase, what would be the impact on your finances? Because even if they give you severance here is a function of how long have you put into this thing, and everything is standard, right? Everything is standard. Even me, I lay off my staff when it's normal. Like, and once you want to lay somebody off, I don't like giving them 2 weeks to still keep coming. No, I just pay you off that 2 weeks, and then we cut ties to your tent, O Israel, right? But again, because of the nature of this environment where we are, the onus is on us to have our plans properly put together to accommodate some of these interruptions, so that when any of these things happening, we are not caught unawares, okay? And it may not be loss of joy, it could be illness, it could be disability, right? Okay, so there's always an impact. And in this environment, regardless of any of these or even death, the financial obligations will keep coming. It's going to be there. The utility bills company are not going to say, oh, we heard you're disabled or you're sick. Okay, yeah, take your time, don't worry, whenever you're ready. No, there's nothing like that. Okay. So let's just note that. We're moving on to risk of illness or disability. Even though I've talked about that in the course of this, but again, let's dive in deeper on that. The risk of disability for 3 months or longer is higher than the risk of death for all age groups. Disability can have as great an impact on family finances as death. Okay, and the risk of this disability high. What is disability? Disability simply means loss of income due to illness or due to sickness and stuff like that, right? If disability means the person is unable to work and earn an income, financial hardship may ensue. This is particularly true for those who are self-employed or sole proprietors. Adding a waiver of premium benefits on a dread disease rider to a client's life insurance policy will help the client keep the policy in force should the client be unable to earn an income due to what? Illness or disability. Okay, so there is what we call a rider that we called what? Waiver of premium rider. Again, I've explained riders and benefits in the previous chapters. So there is waiver of premium rider. So if you layer this rider on your policy during the financial hardship like this, you will be able to exercise that right for waiver of premium, where you have no need to worry about your premium during those periods. Okay. Now, risk of unemployment, let's talk about that one. Okay. What are the chances that the policyholder will lose his job and be unable to pay premium? Job instability can be managed by choice of a policy with premium flexibility, such as a whole life policy with automatic premium loans or universal life. You see, this permanent insurance, such as UL or whole life, they have automatic premium loans. And again, if you are wondering about what is automatic premium loans, don't worry. We've got you covered in the previous chapters, okay? It's going to make sense when you go through all the programs and you're going to get it in one piece. And moving on to insurance needs analysis, income replacement approach. Let's talk about this one. Income replacement approach, okay? From an insurance perspective, income replacement. You guys see how excited I am when I'm scrolling now, right? I'm not having that insurance.
Yeah.
And this thing jumping on me, oh my goodness, it was so frustrating. Anyways, let's continue. From an insurance perspective, income replacement approach is reflected by the loss of employment employment income that will result from the death of an income earner. Okay, so again, let's say husband and wife. In the case of Derek and Becky, Derek is the income earner. So now we're talking about income replacement. Now it's talking about how long do you want to replace the income of the breadwinner. Again, I want to emphasize, I've shared my calendar in the Telegram groups. Is filling up very quick. Book for yourself. Okay, how many of you here have had your expert financial analysis done? Book for yourself so that when I go through this with you for you, right? It's going to make, we're talking about income replacement. So when we are doing EFA and you see the income replacement and right there you see the analysis, you say, okay, this is, you will never forget. Trust me. If you trust me, you will do these things I'm telling you. Start with yourself. Start with yourself. Okay? Now, this approach strives to replace that lost income. And it's assumed that as long as this income can be replaced, the surviving family will not experience a reduction in their standard of living. Again, going back to our case study, Derek is currently the sole income earner for the family. A life insurance needs analysis based on the income replacement approach will determine the value of the income that will be lost upon his death. If the life insured played an essential non-income earning role in the family, such as that of a caregiver, that individual's contribution can be expressed in terms of what it will cost to replace that service. Pretty much explained, right? Where the life insured provides an essential but unpaid function, his contribution can be expressed in terms of what it will cost to replace that essential service or income in kind. Going back to our case study again, Becky currently stays at home to care for Anya, Robbie, as well as Jordan when he is with Derek. Recall that Derek and his ex-wife Susan shared joint custody of Jordan. While Becky's death will not result in loss of income, her role as a caregiver still has economic value. A life insurance needs analysis based on the income replacement approach will determine the cost of replacing her duties as a caregiver and homemaker. I see this all the time when I sit down with families and we are doing this analysis and determine how we could, structure the policies. Oftentimes, the women are like, oh, let's focus on my husband first. Let's do it so, he's the one. But what they fail to understand is the value on what they do as a stay-at-home mom, caring for the children, making the home to make sure that everything runs smoothly, everybody is well nourished and well fed. They push to the back burner how those, valuable efforts or things that they do at home, okay, will be lost if they were not to be present. Okay, so this is what this is telling us, that even if the woman is a stay-at-home, we have to put value on what they do, because if they were to pass away, then somebody will have to be hired to carry out those roles and responsibilities. And what will be the cost of paying the salary for that person? Make sense? All right, all right, all right. We move on to capitalization of lost income. Let's talk about this one. Under this approach, the insurance needs is determined by calculating the lump sum amount of capital that will need to be invested in order to generate the lost income. Capitalized value calculation is equal to annual income divided by rate of return. Now, in calculations, using this approach result in a higher insurance need. And this method is also referred to as capital retention method, because it assumes that the principal always remains intact. It is also the income generated by investing the principal that is used by the beneficiary and not the principal itself, because the income streams last in perpetuity. Now, let's go back to our case study again. Do we understand this? Maybe I should read it again so that we get it. We are talking about capitalized value, right? So now this is talking about investment that will continue to yield benefits, right? And this is telling us that what we take annual income divided by rate of returns. And what is our annual income here? So now, streams, the case of Derek, current a home take home for Derek is what, 4,800 per month. Assuming a rate of returns of 5%, therefore the capitalized value of its lost income will be what? 2 million plus, calculated as 8,400 per month times 12 divided by 5. This suggests that he should have about 2 million in life insurance. Wow. 8,400 times 12. What is that? How come they have this huge amount of money? Um, 8,400 times 12.
Yeah, still 2 million and change.
Wow. Wow. Anyways, so that is on that one. Now we move on to impact of investment returns, inflation, and income tax. Okay. So what is the impact of investment returns, all right, on our needs analysis? And then also inflation. We also see what inflation is doing now. The current inflation is Canada. I think we are sitting at 4.8 as at the last time I checked, which is like 3-4 days ago. So now it's really high right now, but what is the impact of that? right? Anybody doing proper financial planning will notice a significant impact of inflation on all of us right now. But when you are oblivious about all these things, you see, I always tell people when I sit down with them that, you see, the fact that you choose not to understand or know something doesn't mean it does not exist, and doesn't mean that the impact will not affect you, you see, because some people prefer to enjoy um, that short-term relief, okay, of not knowing the in-depth impact of certain things on them. But for me, I believe when you know, then you can plan better, then you can prepare better, right? Okay, side story. Now, impact of investment, returns, inflation, and on income tax. Let's talk about this one. The approach described assumes that return earned on the invested death benefit will remain constant over time to protect against changing investment returns. A conservative interest rate should be used. Okay. Also, the approach so far fails to consider the impact of income taxes or inflation on income. So imagine, so with this kind of situation now, considering where our inflation number is sitting now, you can imagine the impact, right? And that's why we need to put into consideration all this impact, right? Now, accounting for income taxes. Life insurance proceeds are not taxable when received. However, the resulting income from invested life insurance proceeds is taxable. What does this mean? In terms of income replacement, lost income may be expressed either as a gross salary or after-tax amount, and the capitalization of income should be calculated on the same basis. Thus, if the lost income is expressed as an after-tax amount, then the interest rate used when calculating the capitalization of the income should also be an after-tax amount using an appropriate tax rate. Okay, because you see in our examples, we've been using Derek's after-tax amount. We've been using his net income, not his gross. Okay, so what this is explaining to us is that if we are using that, then that should also be the calculation. You see, the lost income that is expressed as an after-tax amount, then the interest rate used when calculating the capitalization of the income should also be an after-tax amount. For example, typically our the interest rate, the baseline we use for interest rate in calculating universal life rates of returns, we typically use a conservative interest rate of 6%. But when I'm dealing with a client that I know this client is aggressive and I know that we could go aggressive for this client, I can push my limit a little bit to 7%. Okay. Now, what this is telling us is that because using this rate in this case would not be doing justice to this, because this is not an after-tax rate. And that is why you can see that in up here, it recommends to really go conservative. Where is that? There's a place it recommends for us to ensure that we use a conservative something. But Isha is here. All right. Okay, so that we can use after-tax net rate to calculate the after-tax capitalization of income. Now, the MPR should be used if the income amount is small. relative to the recipient's other sources of income, and the average tax rate should be used if the income amount is large. We'll go back to what is MTR again? The marginal tax rate. I'm like, what is MTR again? The MTR stands for marginal tax rate, okay? So therefore, the marginal tax rate should be used if the income amount is small, relative to the recipient's other sources of income. And the average tax rate should be used if the income amount is large. Now we go back to our case study again. Derek has an after-tax income of 8,400 per month, which is 800,000. 800,000. Did I sound that correct? 800,000. That's correct, right? Yeah.
108,000.
Oh, 108,000. Okay. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I know it wasn't sounding right. Yeah. Therefore, the investment income and on the death benefit needs to be calculated on an after-tax basis. And the after-tax rate of return is calculated as follows. After-tax rate of return is equal to rate of return multiplied by 1 minus tax rate. So as we get into this phase, guys, you need to bring out your, I hope you have a notebook, your pen, because I had mentioned during the earlier classes that when it comes to calculations, you don't read calculations, you study calculations, you write it, and that's the way to do it, right? So now if our tax rate of returns is equal to rate of returns multiplied by 1 minus tax rate. So in the investment rate, if the investment return is 5%, and average tax rate is 25%. Therefore, the after-tax rate of return is 3.75. And this is calculated as follows. 5% multiplied by 1 minus 25%. Okay, this is average tax rate, which is this 25%. Okay, and that's how we get 3.75%. Okay, now this 5% is that our rate of returns. This means that using the replacement of income approach, adjusted for income taxes, Derek would need 2,688,000 in life insurance calculation. Wow. And this will be calculated as 8,400 multiplied by 12 months divided by death. Okay. And like I mentioned in chapter 10, you see, all this is just for the purpose of exams. Okay. We have a software. When you just put your information, it gives you the insurance needs of the client. And those are the things that the $37 you pay every month covers. So would you rather be doing this calculation every time you sit down with client, or have a software that does it for you? I would rather have the software that does it for me. But for the sake of the exams, it's important to understand. Okay. Now let's talk about accounting for inflation. Accounting for inflation. Oh my God, we're making progress, right? And accounting for inflation. Inflation is defined as the increase in prices over time. The effect of inflation results in a fall in the purchasing value of money. And with the same amount of money, one can buy fewer goods now compared to 1 year ago. And that is so true. I remember when I used to do groceries with $200. The whole cart is so full everywhere, bring it back, come back, the countertop, sorting out. But now I carry 2 nylon bags with two, 2 bags, $200. Why? Because of the impact of inflation. Now, going back to our case study, if Derek's employment income increases at the rate of just 2% a year, the 8,400 per month he takes home today will increase to 10,240 in 10 years, which is a significant difference. as the inflation rate is 2% per year and the investment return is 5% per year.
Wow.
The inflation adjusted
Wonder,
rate
right?
of return is 2.9%, calculated as follows. Can we move to ourselves, please? Okay, so that is the calculation for that. This means that using the replacement of income approach adjusted for inflation, Derek would need 3,428,571 in life insurance, calculated as 3,428,571 in bracket, which is equal to 8,400 per month multiplied by 12 divided by 2.94. The approach also assumes that the income being replaced is fixed over time. In reality, this is not the case, as an individual salary usually increases over time. The following calculation for capitalized value address the issue, which takes inflation into account. It is called the inflation adjusted rates of returns. And then the formula for inflation adjusted rates of return is 1 plus return divided by 1 plus inflation rate minus 1. Okay? Now, accounting for income taxes and inflation simultaneously. All right, accounting. Accounting for inflation. We've done that one. Weakness of income. All right, so let's do, okay, weakness of income and inflation. Okay, accounting for income taxes and inflation simultaneously. Both income taxes and inflation will affect the amount of capital needed. The after-tax and after inflation rate of returns should be used in order to account for both factors. And in this case, after after inflation rate of returns is equal to 1 plus after-tax returns divided by 1 plus inflation rate minus 1. Now we'll go back to our case study. By the way, you see all these formulas, there is a formula sheet, okay, in your study guide. What I would recommend is you can print it out, have it handy, okay? And also, I would like also to mention at this point that this exam is an open book exam, okay? I mean the provincial, not the certification. Your certification is proctored, okay? It's not open book, okay? However, your provincial is open book exam. But from my experience, even though it's open book, you see, I would recommend you be prepared and then only use it sparingly because of time, because you really don't have time. But when it comes to formula like this, in case you don't remember, at least you can reference your open book or your exam, so quickly grab the formula to do the calculations. Okay, I just wanted to mention that. Now let's look at our case study. Previously, it was determined that if the investment rate of return is 5% per year and taxes are 25%, right? Then the after-tax rate of return is 3.75. However, if the inflation rate is 2%, then the after-tax rate return is calculated as 1 plus 0. This divided by 1 plus this minus 1, which gives us this. Okay, so now you are looking at, so which one? For me, the way I do this thing is I go back to my formula. I look at, okay, which one is on top, which one is below. You see, because I have 1 plus minus 1. And it's just to determine which one is, okay, so the inflation is the bottom one, and then the tax rate is on top. See, that is the way I look for ways. Because why you are saying, okay, inflation, just remember, tax after-tax rates returns, that is the benefit, that is the result, the money you make, the after-tax of the rate of return. Inflation, that is the one that, that eats things up, okay, is the one at the bottom. Put the rates of returns on top, and then inflation at the bottom. All of them have 1 + 1 +, and then -1. Whatever works for you guys. I'm just looking for ways to make this interesting. And if, these simple analogies enable you to remember, hallelujah, then my work is done, right? All right, we move on to weakness of income replacement approach. Weakness of income replacement approach. Under what circumstances can we say that our income replacement approach is weak? Let's talk about that one. The income replacement approach has the benefit of simplicity, but it fails to address what the survivors actually need. How long the lost income will have been generated if the life insured had not died, or the life insured's desire to create or protect estates. You see, that is the weakness. And also, you see, one thing with all this planning and everything is that at the end of the day, you can plan that, oh, client, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you need 3 million, you need 5 million. At the end of the day, it comes down to affordability. What can they afford? Right? If you need the analysis say they must have 3 million and they cannot afford 3 million, what will you do? Right? Mhm. Moving on to insurance needs analysis, capital needs approach. This one is capital needs approach. Capital needs approach. This approach is based on the actual needs of survivors for capital. So this one is not survival, this one is for capital. It identifies all of the income and capital needs arising as a result of debt and converts them into capitalized amount of debt. This approach starts by listing the surviving family's sources of income and comparing them with their expenses to determine if shortfalls exist. A shortfall is an indication of how much insurance coverage is needed. You see that? So the capital needs approach, if the person have so much money and they have this, they have it. So, first of all, put all those into consideration, right? If let's say somebody's insurance needs is 5 million and the person have a capital and asset and liquid whatever that is like 4 million. So it means the shortfall is just 1 million, right? Or the person even may have existing life insurance and you just focus on the shortfall. All right. Now, income earned by survivors. Let's talk about this one. Okay. How about where the survivor is earning income? Oh, I need a drink. I have a drink here. Courtesy my sister. See that very cute drink. That's helpful. All right. Income earned by surviving family may be earned from employment income, pensions, or investment income, or government benefits. Okay. Like in the case of our case study, Becky does not currently work and she does not expect to return to work for at least 6 years, at which time she believes that her take-home pay will be about 4,400 per month. However, Derek will feel better if he knew that she will manage the household financially without working until Robbie turns 18. Neither of them currently earn investment or pension income. All right. So now our case study still continues. If Derek dies, Becky will be eligible for a Canada Pension Plan (CPP) survivors benefit of about $638 per month, and all three of the children will be eligible for a CPP benefit of about $250 $255 per month. as children of a deceased CPP contributor. Derek wants to ignore any potential benefit his family could receive under his province workers' compensation, but because there is no guarantee that his death will be work-related. Derek's non-registered investment portfolio currently produces after-tax income of $7,200 annually. But because these assets may be needed to meet state expenses, this income is not being included at this point. You see, we've seen the breakdown of income earned by survivors. You see, when the spouse dies, so we are now, flashing our light on the survivors. In one way, can this survivor earn some money, and how would that reduce the financial impact of death on this family? And right off the back, we've listed potential sources of income of the surviving spouse coming from all the case studies we've been using. And I'm very happy that, they've been consistent with the same case study. And that is very helpful because now we are building, with that knowledge. We are now familiar with Derek, with Becky, with their children, and all those kind of stuff, right? Which I believe is genius. Anyways, ongoing expenses, let's talk about that. You see, their expenses are not going to end or stop, right? What expenses might continue after the death of the proposed life insured? Expenses can fall into four categories. Increasing expenses over time, such as property taxes. Oh my God, these property taxes, eh? Don't know you guys' province, but my goodness, it's like the city will just wake up and go on a rampage of raising revenue, and they feel property taxes is their whatever, whatever. That's not funny. Anyways, um, decreasing expenses over time, such as childcare, as children grow, so that one is on a decreasing whatever. Then level expenses that stays the same, such as a set dollar amount paid to a charity. You see, and the expenses that can be completely eliminated, such as debt that will be paid off by the debt benefits. Now, him taking also again our case study, you see, Derek has indicated that he would like to see all his debt paid in full upon his death, which means Becky will not have to worry about mortgage anymore or car payments. So Derek also wants to handle the support obligations separately. So they will not form part of Becky's budget if he dies. In addition, some of their expenses, such as gas, car insurance, and food, will decrease slightly upon his death. The table below shows a modified version of the summary of expenses that was provided in chapter 10. Assessing the client situation, showing both current expenses and how they will likely change as a result of Derek's death. Okay, so this is the summary of this um, family, summary of the family's monthly expenses, current and after death. Okay, this is expenses monthly, this is current, and then this is after death. See, spousal support 500 after death, zero. Child support 1,000 after death. Mortgage 1,800 after death, zero. Car loan, property tax is ongoing. Home insurance, it keeps going. That one is upward trajectory. Property tax for cottage, it will be there because there is one to pass it to the children. Cottage insurance ongoing. Car insurance now is helping because they are not using two cars again, just Becky's car, right? Gas will also come down because she will only buy gas for only her own car. Then food, slightly reduction. Insurance for Derek, no more. Clothing, slightly reduced. RESP contribution stays the same. Dining out, probably the same. Sports and fitness, slightly reduced. Vacation stays the same. Total monthly expenses reduced drastically. Okay? Income shortfall. Let's talk about this one. So now, if the income is less than the expenses, if the income is less than the expenses, then an income shortfall exists. Calculate as follows: expenses minus income. Now, in the case of our in the case of our case study, in the case of our case study, if there's any correct English there, but you guys know what I mean now because it's sounding somehow in my own ear. Anyways,
Yes.
factoring in the CPP survival benefit, 638 monthly for Becky, 225 monthly for each of the children. If Derek dies, then the family will experience a shortfall, significant shortfall of 2,747 per month. Calculated as this. You see that? So this, if Derek is not sitting down to plan for these things and is oblivious about it, does it mean that this situation does not exist, guys? It does exist. It does, right? But sitting down with an expert and looking at the numbers and planning effectively and accurately for it, I can imagine the peace of mind he will feel knowing that if anything happens to him, his family are well taken care of. See, capitalization of income shortfall. Now he knows that, oh, if anything happens now, my wife is not going to be able to cope because every month she's going to be needing 4,000 plus, but the money coming in is only this amount. How will she cope? Now, knowing that there is this shortfall of 2007 something, now Derek is going to do something about it. And this is what we call capitalization of income shortfall. Let's talk about it. Once the shortfall is determined, the next step is to calculate the amount of capital that will be needed at death to cover the shortfall. Two methods can be used. Okay? The capital retention method and capital drawdown method. Please note this. This will likely be is an example wherever. Capital retention method. Okay? The capital retention method was demonstrated above and is used when the intent is to preserve the capital of the death benefit and replace income, where capitalization of shortfall is equal to annual shortfall divided by investment return. For greater accuracy, the investment return used should be after tax and inflation adjusted rate of returns. We talked about that earlier, guys, remember, right? Okay. Again, using our case study, previously it was determined that if the reflation rate is 2% per year, then the investment return is 5%, and the average tax rate is 25%, then the after-tax, after inflation rate of return is 1.71. Using the capital retention method, the capitalized value of Mary's family income shortfall will be this amount calculated as 2747 multiplied by 12 divided by 1.71. Okay, a more practical approach for needs that have a limited duration is to multiply the annual shortfall by the number of years the shortfall is expected. And this is called a what? A capital drawdown method. Okay, so in this case now, if the shortfall, let's say the shortfall is for a specific period of time, maybe until the children are 18, and then Becky can then go back to work and earn more money, then you can then calculate those shortfall by the number of years. Okay, if the child is 1 year or 2 years until the child is 18. So that one is called the capital drawdown method. Coming back to our case study again, Derek has indicated that he would prefer that Becky would not have to return to work until Robbie is 18 years old. At that time, she could find work and likely take home enough money to cover all her expenses. Using the capital drawdown method, the capitalized value of the family shortfall over 18 years will be what? 59968, calculated as 2747 multiplied by 12 multiplied by 18. Okay. Any other ongoing expenses, such as support obligations to a previous family, could be handled in a similar manner. Again, to our case study, Derek would like to ensure that his estate can provide spousal support to his ex-wife, Susan, of $500 per month for a maximum term of 21 years until Susan is age 65. And using the capitalized drawdown method, this results in a capitalized value of 126,000, calculated as 500 per month multiplied by 12 multiplied by 21. Okay, that is pretty much straightforward, right? So he also wants to ensure that his child support obligations of 1,000 per month can be met for 11 years until Jordan is 19 years old. Using the drawdown method, the capitalized value of this support payment is 132,000, which is calculated as 1,000 per month multiplied by 12 months multiplied by 11 years. All right, so we are moving on to capital needs analysis. What is capital needs analysis? We're going to be talking about this one. So you've seen the behavior of the two methods, right? So the two methods are I think we have it up here. The capital retention method and the drawdown method, right? The drawdown method is when you look into the time frame, okay, of the shortfall and do the multiplications. And then the retention method seems to be higher because you're just, using a flat timeline for that one. Okay. Awesome. Let's move on to capital needs analysis. Well, the next step is to identify all of the other lump sum needs that may arise as a result of death. You see, when you have taken care of all these, seemingly known situations, expected situations, which are more or less like an existing, things you're already doing, but how about things that may arise as a result of death, right? How do you handle those? That's what this is speaking to. So in order to ensure that the estate has enough liquidity to meet these needs, other costs that may have to be considered, such as final expenses, funeral, burial, etc., tax liabilities, debts such as mortgage and loans, estate expenses such as probate fees and legal fees, emergency funds to establish a liquid reserve funds equal to 3 to 6 months of living expenses, education funds to pay the cost of post-secondary education, estate equalization to ensure heir receive equal sum from the estate. Charitable giving. You see, this estate equalization, I dealt with it in the previous classes, okay? So when you go through the previous class, you're going to be all caught up with the way I explained this one, okay? We move on to what? Final expenses. So final costs are the costs associated with a funeral, burial, cremation, visitation, or remembrance services for the deceased. You see, and this varies, right? Now, It depends, but for us back home, we know that burial is carnival, is big deal, is huge, right? But here, the way they handle burial, the way burial is handled, it varies from individual to individual, depends on what you want, right? Derek has previously indicated that he believes that 20,000 will be sufficient to cover his final death expenses. Okay, but this number, it won't even come close. Okay, from the recent findings I'm doing, we'll be looking at 30 to 40,000, and people wonder, you mean final expenses can be that? Yes, yeah, it can be that. Can be that high. Okay, now again, back to our case study. The cottage currently has an adjusted cost basis of 250,000. Okay, and a fair market value of 600,000, which will result in a taxable capital gain of 175,000 if Derek dies today. Calculated as deemed proceed, which is 600,000 minus ACB, which is 250,000 multiplied by 50%. Okay, if Derek's marginal tax rate for the year of death is 45%, then the resulting tax liability will be what? 78,750. That's why when I say even dead people pay taxes, my God, can you imagine this? There are some things that the more I know, the more I like, God, help our country, because who wants to be doing this for so long? You pay, even in debt, you are still paying, right? But if you know how to
And see.
structure your estate and you use trust strategy, and that's very important. Otherwise, you work so hard and everything will just go in a swift. Okay. Note that if the cottage continues to appreciate in value prior to Derek's death, which is quite probable given historical increases, then this tax liability will be even higher. Okay, so we move on to tax liabilities. All right, are you guys learning something?
Yes.
Oh dear. All right, let's talk about tax liabilities. It has been previously mentioned that upon death, in disposition of capital assets and deregistration of registered assets, unless a rollover provision is used, can result in a significant tax burden. If cash is not available to cover the tax liability, assets in the estate may have to be sold to provide the required funds. Sarah doesn't smile. Oh boy. Derek's plan, again, our case study. Derek plans to leave all of his assets, with the exception of the cottage, to Becky upon his death. He would like to leave the cottage in trust to the children upon his death, and this will result in the deemed disposition for tax purposes. Okay? So again, because asset, you see, when assets flows to the next generation, that is when the tax is triggered. Sarah is a patient dog. There's what we call asset rollover to your spouses. So when one of the spouses passes away, all the assets automatically roll over to, the surviving spouse, especially when the spouse is named beneficiary in the case of registered programs like RRSP, TFSA, and the likes. But when the asset is flowing to the next generation, nothing can be done about that. There's going to be capital gain, and those capital gains will trigger taxes based on current market value less adjusted cost basis. Okay, for those of you in Ontario, if not, the market is cooling down now. Okay, people have bought houses for 500,000, and those houses now are 2 million, 2.5 million. Imagine you bought a house 500,000, now it's 2 million. and you've passed it to your child, to your son, to your whatever, and boom, there is a capital gain of 1.5 million. They have to pay the taxes. See that? All right, moving on to debt elimination. I think that's clear enough, right, guys? So we move on to what? Debt elimination. Okay, a common objective in a life insurance needs. You see, to step back a little bit to tax liabilities, you see, in using the case of this individual, in the case of Ontario, that bought a house, 500,000, now it's 2 million. Now, when if this person have a proper financial planning in place, this person will know that, oh, when I pass away, due to the fact that I'm giving this house to my son, there's going to be a capital gain of 1.5. So what this person needs to do is just take a life insurance, so that as soon as the person dies, the death benefit can now be used to settle CRA. That way his son can keep the house based on his wish. However, if there's no adequate provision for that capital gain taxes to be paid, then the son will have no option. Where would the son take almost 700,000, depending on the deceased tax bracket for that year, to pay, right? In order to keep the house. All right, let's move on to debt elimination. A common objective in a life insurance needs analysis is to ensure that the estate has sufficient liquidity to pay off all debts owing at the time of death. Again, taking a look at our case study, Derek wants their mortgage of 350,196 and his car loan of 41,000 to be paid off if he dies. All right, moving on to estate expenses. The estate will need enough cash to pay expenses incurred by an estate, such as probate fees, which can be as high as 1.5% of estate assets, depending on the jurisdiction. Hey, God. Okay, now compensation for the executor or estate trustees, often in order of 1 to 3% of the estate assets. Legal fees, depending upon the estate needs, asset management fees, particularly if the asset consists of a large investment portfolio. Property maintenance fees, if the asset includes real estate. In the case of our case study, oh my God, this again. Anyways, Derek feels that his estate is fairly straightforward, and his brother has agreed to act as his executor without compensation. As a result, no provision has been made for estate expenses. You see, when I say we, my husband and I are looking at, our estate planning, I said looking in on my family side, on his family, who can one trust to execute stuff with? Who? Who? I still have not gotten answer to that. But if you're on this call tonight, you may want to start checking. You see, for some of us, we're lucky, we're privileged, we are surrounded by amazing, family members. But it doesn't have to be a family member. Identify somebody you can trust. That's what is called what? Trustee, executors. Someone that could, implement your wish. Okay, otherwise, to start paying this 3% of your entire estate and another 1.5, that's going to like 5% of entire estate. It's not cheap. Okay, so start looking, and also you yourself, make yourself that individual that somebody can call on, can depend on, can lean on, can rely on. Because we all need each other when it comes to stuff like this. But may God help us, because That aspect is deep. Anyways, moving on to emergency funds. Well, as a rule of thumb, the family should have liquid assets equivalent to 3 to 6 months of expenses available as an emergency resource. While the life insured can have accumulated can have accumulated sub no, this is not making sense. Let me look into let me read that again. While the life insured can have accumulated a sufficient emergency fund, it can be easily consumed upon death by final expenses, income taxes, or other estate expenses, which could leave the surviving family without an emergency fund safety net. And going back to our case study, Derek and Becky currently have 25,000 each in their TFSA and marked as their emergency fund, as well as 20,000 in their joint checking account. Their monthly expenses are 8,560 or 51,360 over 6 months. So their current emergency fund is adequate. However, they need to be careful that this does not get consumed by all of the expenses associated with Derek's death. Assuming that Becky's monthly expenses after Derek's death would be 4,150 as shown in the table, summary of the family's monthly expenses, current and after death, Derek would like to ensure that 6 times this amount, or about 25,000, is maintained as an emergency fund. Moving on to education fund. Okay. The capitalized value of anticipated education expenses is often included in the life insurance needs analysis. In our case study, as discussed in chapter 10, assessing the client's situation, Derry feels that setting aside 10,000 for each of their 3 children, in addition to their RESP, will be sufficient. They would like the capital needs analysis to include an education fund of $30,000. Estate equalization. We've explained these principles before. Well, let's talk about it a little bit, but I'm going to fly through it. Sometimes the assets in a deceased estate that are to be shared among family members, that is children, do not divide equally. That's very true. Insurance can be used to help equalize the distribution of an estate so that from a value standpoint, each child receives an equal share of the estate. In our case study, suppose that Derek has decided to leave the cottage to Jordan only, perhaps because Jordan is the one who will likely use or enjoy it, or because Derek knows that Jordan, Anya, and Robbie will not be able to manage it jointly without fighting. While the children in this case, in this case study, are currently too young for this issue to arise. It is common situation in other families. However, how would Anya and Robbie feel about their brother receiving sole title to an asset worth 600,000? There would perhaps alleviate conflict between the siblings if he bought sufficient life insurance to give 600,000 each to Anya and Robbie, thereby equalizing their treatment. I think that one is straightforward, right? Yeah, pretty much straightforward. That's just like creating a leveling ground for all your children, right? For me now, I have 5 children, and if I'm to give them properties, so it means we need to have 5 properties. And even if we have 5 properties, they are not in the same countries. So how do you determine the value of properties in one country versus another in a such a way that a particular child would not feel cheated, right? So you just take a value in one country, and if the value in another country is lower than the other one, then you can equalize it by what? Life insurance. Okay. We move on to charitable bequests and what? Legacies. Now, a client may have special bequests or desires that they would like to do upon death, such as charitable giving, setting up a scholarship or endowment fund. This special bequest may be part of a tax strategy or purely for philanthropic motivations. Again, using our case study, Derek has indicated that he would like to be able to donate 100,000 to the local hospice center upon his death. Okay, so that again is straightforward. Total capital needs. Now that's where we bring it all together. Once all of the capital needs have been identified, including the capitalized income shortfall, a total must be calculated. Again, going through our case study, there is total capital needs in the event of death as summarized in the table below. Okay, this is capital needs and these are the amounts. All right, these are the shortfall. Okay, final expenses, income tax, cottage, blah, 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 blah. And then total capital needs is 1.5 something. All right, assets available upon debt. So let's take a look. Let's talk about this one. Okay, keep in mind that many assets may exist, but they may not be immediately available to cover expenses, of course, especially assets that are not liquid assets. Okay, you can't easily use to cover immediate expenses. Even if cash or cash equivalents are available, the survivor may not wish to use them, preferring instead to keep cash on hand. A summary of the family's assets may develop in may develop Oh, sorry. A summary of the family's asset was developed in the chapter assessing the client situation and is repeated in the table below. But many of these assets are not available to meet estate needs. Wow. So these are the summary. Okay. Okay. So Becky is the beneficiary of Eric's registered retirement savings plan, RRSP, and his defined contribution pension plan, DCPP. And he believes they should be preserved for her own retirement. She will continue to live in the house, and the cottage is to be held in trust for their children. Presumably, she will keep his newer car and sell her van. This leaves a much smaller asset based off 402,750 as summarized in the following table. Okay, you can take a look at that. All right, let's talk about existing insurance. A summary should also be made of existing insurance in terms of premium, renewability, convertibility, and for permanent insurance. Its cash surrender value, its adjusted cost basis. Again, taking a look at our case study, Derek has an individual 250,000 10-year term life insurance policy that named his estate as the beneficiary. It is renewed and convertible until age 70. He is currently paying premium of 240 per year, but the policy will renew in 2 years at age 49 with premiums of 1125 at renewal at age 59 and 69, the premium will jump up to 2625 and then 6875 respectively. He also has 100,000 of coverage through his employer's group life insurance plan. Now let's talk about the shortfall a little bit. Okay, the last step is to determine the shortfall in capital, which is calculated as capital shortfall, which is total capital needs at debt minus available assets, less existing life insurance. Very straightforward in it. All right. So again, this shortfall represents the amount of additional insurance that should be required or should be acquired. It is normally rounded up to the nearest 10,000 or 50,000. Again, in our case study, using a capital needs approach with a capital drawdown method. Remember? Capital drawdown method. Do we remember that, guys? I can't hear anybody. Anyways, I'm going to keep going. Various capital shortfall is 754,240, calculated as this. Okay, Derek should therefore consider acquiring an additional insurance of 760,000 of coverage. All right, bringing it all together. All right, so we are bringing it all together. Once the insurance agent has determined if life insurance is needed, the next step is to evaluate what options are suitable for the client. Okay? A few more factors should be considered before a recommendation is made to the client, such as duration of risk, investment needs, cash flow available to pay the insurance premium, additional coverage for spouse or dependent. Okay? Now, when we look at for the duration of risk, the duration of each capital need helps determine whether permanent or term insurance is required. Okay, not all risks are lifelong. For example, a mortgage has a fixed term, usually 25 years. Term insurance or term rider on a permanent policy can best address this risk, in which a duration can be specified. Some risk created an obligation beyond the death of the life insured. For example, a disabled child may require care lifetime, which could extend for 30 years after the death of the life insured. The amount needed must be available when the life insured dies to ensure continued care. Okay, the need to pay taxes that arises on death makes a good case for a permanent insurance. A proposed life insurance, a proposed life insured may have a combination of risk for insurance to cover. Some have a set term and some arise at. All right. Okay. So that speaks to our duration of risk. How about investment needs? Okay. Let's talk about this one. Life insurance can be used as an investment for individuals looking for additional tax deferred opportunities beyond what is provided by RRSP or TFSC. You see, for a lot of people that does universal life, this is usually their own needs, you see, as an investment. And why must I pay? So when we explain term insurance for them, you hear something like, you mean after the term, what happened to all the money I paid? I said, well, that's why it's term insurance. Your money is gone. They said, no, I don't want that one. I don't want the one that my money is gone. I want the one that my money will have something. You see, so for such an individual, the insurance coverage for them is for an investment purposes. Okay. All right. So continue with our reading as well. Life insurance can be let me take from the beginning again. Life insurance can be used as an investment for individuals looking for additional tax deferred opportunities beyond what is provided by an RRSP or TFSA. As well, life insurance can be used to transfer wealth to the next generation. Again, using our case study, Derek and Becky are not maximizing their RRSP, and they are only making contributions to their TFSA in years when Derek has a bonus. Their only current investment program involves their RESP for the children. As a result, they do not appear to need additional investment opportunities. Okay, now for this, okay, so this is very straightforward. Let me not even like go into that. Let's go into cash flow versus premiums. Okay, the best policy or the best amount of coverage may not be affordable for the policyholder. I did mention this earlier, right? Because at the end of the day, when we put these plans together and you say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I've evaluated your needs, I've did yada, 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 so your needs right now is 3.57 million. But the question is, can they afford it? Right? Can they afford it? Sometimes a trade-off will be needed between the ideal type of or amount of insurance and the cash flow available to pay the premium. You now have to find a balance, and that is the trade-off that is being talked about here. A convertible term policy may provide a short-term solution. And if income increases, the policy can then be converted to permanent insurance if the policy includes a conversion option. Also, if income fluctuates from time to time, a UA policy allows the policyholder to adjust the premiums to some degree. Again, looking at our case study, remember in chapter 10, assessing the client situation, it was determined that the family has current monthly expenses of 8,560, while their take-home pay was 8,400 per month, and his after-tax investment income was 600 as long as his non-registered investment portfolio continues to provide the same level of income. It appears that the family has about 440 per month to potentially spend for insurance purposes. Derek has also noted that his take-home pay might increase to 9,500 in 2 years when he hopes to what to be promoted to chief operating officer, and this would increase their cash flow in the future. Okay, so now when a client have this kind of plan coming up in the future, then you can look at universal life, because with universal life, there's that flexibility that they can even start paying the minimum right now, and then when that increase comes, then they bump their contribution. Okay, those are different strategies that we can implement to accommodate some of those gaps. Okay, coverage for spouse or dependents. Let's talk about this one. Okay, if the rest of the family does not have sufficient life insurance coverage, or if cash flow is an issue, then there may be an opportunity and it may be more affordable to cover them under the same policy. For example, some or all of the insurance could be done on a joint first to die or joint last to die basis on both spouses, and the spouses and or children could be covered under a family life rider. Again, using our case study, Derek and Becky do not currently have any insurance on Becky's life or any of the children. So ideally, he would like coverage for at least 150,000 on Becky's life to help pay for the childcare until the children are all in school full time, and 10,000 on each of the children. Okay, making recommendations. So thinking about making recommendations here, the next step is to access the various life insurance options and make a recommendation to the clients. Types of coverage. So now we need to look at type of coverage so we can determine which one do we recommend to our clients. So let's talk about types of coverage a little bit. Well, the agent must determine who the life insured will be and the most appropriate type of policy based on the major risk as well as the appropriate term. Okay, taking a look at our case study, when you analyze something like this, you don't need to think twice to know that the main person to be covered here is Derek, right? So more than one type of policy may be appropriate. If that is the case, riders can be added to to supplement coverage or address specific needs. In the case of our case study, no. Anyway, going back to our case study, there is risk can be roughly categorized into three categories. Those that will disappear in about 10 years, child support for Jordan and Calvin. Those that will disappear in 20 to 25 years, for example, mortgage, income shortfall for Becky and spousal support, and then the tax liability on the inheritance of the cottage, which will be a permanent concern. The donation to the hospice, which will be a permanent concern. So it will appear that Derek could use a combination of 20-year and or 10-year term insurance policy to cover all needs except the tax liability on the cottage and the donations to the hospice. A cumulative cost comparison will be required to determine the most cost-effective options for him. Whole life insurance will be more appropriate than universal life for the tax liability and the donations to the hospice because at this point in time, Derek is not looking for additional investment opportunities and cash flow is limited. Note that while a joint last to die policy is often used to cover the tax liability on a family asset being left to the children, it is not appropriate in this case because the cottage is to be held in trust for the children if Derek dies. There is no opportunity to roll it over to Becky and defer the taxable capital gains until her death. Therefore, all of the Derek's life insurance should be on a single life basis. The coverage on Becky and children should be some form of term life insurance and can be done via an individual policy on Becky with a child life rider or as a family life rider on one of Becky's policies. Both options will be compared shortly. Wow, that is very well explained and very much straightforward, okay? And that is speaking to types of coverage. Now let's talk about death benefits, okay? The agent needs to determine the appropriate death benefits. If multiple policies are processed, each will have the death benefit specific to its policy's objectives. Again, our case study, it has been determined that Derek needs a total of 760,000 in additional life insurance. And this could be broken down as follows. What the taxability on the cottage is estimated to be this based on its current value. Derek is concerned the tax liability could be much higher because he expects the cottage to continue to appreciate in value. As a result, an amount of 200,000 for the permanent insurance policy will be appropriate to cover the cottage tax liability plus the 100,000 hospice donation. Selecting the paid up addition option for any dividend payment will provide further protection against increasing cottage value. Of the other financial needs, two of them will end within the next 10 years. 132,000 in child support for Jordan and a car loan of 41,000. 180,000 times 10 policy should be used to cover these needs. Now, let's go back to the continuation of our case study. The balance of 380,000, which is 760,000 less 200,000 less 180,000, could be covered by either by a term 20 policy or a renewable term policy. A cost analysis should be performed to determine which should be most cost effective in the long run. Term coverage lasting at least 5 years is also needed on Becky's life, plus 10,000 term coverage on each of the 3 children. Derek also wanted to consider whether he should replace his existing 250,000 term policy before it is up for a renewal in 2 years. Okay, so we are moving on to premiums. Now, before we go on to premiums, I want to mention this, that you see, when you're hearing this layering of policies, combo of policies, it's forming imagination. I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I'm seeing something like this, I'm forming a picture in my head. There's a movie in my head. And you're trying to imagine, you're trying to picture how this could look like, right? Again, that's why I said practical field training, because when I take you on field training, starting with yourself, and I show you, okay, this is permanent insurance, this is how you put term insurance, you layer it on top of it as a rider, and this is how this works, you can never forget that. These things are not complicated. It's not big deal. But when you are hearing about it for the first time, then you are imagining in your head how it looks, how it may not. You see, consider starting your field training immediately. It's going to make this whole thing make sense for you. Okay. All right. Let's talk about premiums. Okay. The premiums for each policies and riders should be quoted with the length of the payment period. Okay, the monthly and annual cost should be quoted as well, in addition to the cumulative cost of term recommendations. So when premiums are too expensive, the following remedies are available. 1, you can reduce coverage. 2, you can consider convertible terms instead of permanent. And 3, you can look at underwriting factors that may have cost a higher premium. For example, could be life insurance for go traveling to Afghanistan, if that was on the table. Look at the budget to see if other expenses could be reduced, okay, to free up more cash for premiums. Okay. Now going back to our case study again. Based on Derek's current age, health, and smoking status, the following monthly rates will be applied per 100,000 of coverage. Whole life, we paid up addition 320 for life. Okay, term renewable to age 85, 33 for the first 10 years, 183 and 57 and 435 at age 67, and then 925 at age 77. Term 20 renewable to age 85, 60 for its first 20 years, 540 at age 67. Okay. Now, another thing is to look at cost of new insurance needed for Derek. What is the cost of new insurance? For the cottage liabilities and hospice donations, the 200,000 of whole life insurance will cost $650 per month. This is crazy. And I don't know why they're even going the route of whole life, where universal life will be cheaper. You see, Derek has total term insurance needs of 560, calculated as this, right? So coverage for his shorter term needs, that is child support and car loans, will end in 10 years. So again, they look through the shortfalls on a case-by-case basis, okay, and to arrive at the accurate number. Now, so should Derek use renewable 10-year term, T10, T20 term, or a combination of both to cover these term needs? Performing a cumulative cost analysis can help to what show in the following table. Okay, so this one is that you're looking at, okay, years term 10, term 20, and then a permanent insurance to cover the permanent needs. In my table, because of the way I've blown up, the table, the whole data is out of whack. Okay, so you can go through this data on your own end. Okay, but for me, for me to see, I have to blow it up very, very well. Otherwise, I won't be able to see. Okay. Let's go to the next. All right. Clearly, if only one policy is to be used, the T20 policy option B works out better than the T10 policy option A. In the long run, with cumulative cost of 67,680 over 20 years, compared to 105,625 for the T10 policy. However, notice the cumulative cost for each policy after the 10-year. Before the coverage drops to 380,000 at 10 years, then the T10 policy is the clear winner with a cumulative cost to date of 22,176 compared to 40,320 for the T20 policy. This reversal suggests that a combination of policies may be in Derek's best interest at this point. A cumulative cost comparison is useful between using a T20 policy for the entire 560, dropping to 380,000 after 10 years. Option B, as shown in the table above. And using a combination of T10 policy for the shorter term needs of 180 along with T20 policy of 380 to cover the longer term needs. Option C, as shown below. Again, if you look at your own table, again, my own number is blown up out of whack, okay? Again, see, these are things that we do all the time. When we sit down and we run illustrations for clients, we don't give them just one option. Personally, I give at least three options to the client. Okay, I always present this layer of combination of term, critical illness, disability if they want, and stuff like that, and then a full universal life. And you see, so again, guys, I can't emphasize practical training enough. Okay? The cumulative cost of this combination of policies over 20 years is this. So they're just comparing, different solutions and prices, okay, which is basically what we do and how we do it too. It's just that now we have lots of softwares that we leverage on, but at the end of the day, after using our software, we still put the reports together to show clients, okay? Now, replace it again, this table have put into consideration the existing plan, all right, because they are comparing it with the new policies, okay? Now replace Derek's existing 250 policy. Derek has an existing 250 policy, 10 policy that is due to renew in 2 years. He was shocked to realize how much the premium will increase upon renewal from 250 to 1,125 per year. So Derek heard that it is often cheaper to shop for a new policy rather than renew the old one. So he asked his agent to determine the cost of replacing his old policy. The results are provided in the table below. Again, take a look at the table. Okay. All right. So let's look at the continuation of our case study. What was their finding and based on the table? Well, insurance for Becky and children. So this one now is taking a look at contingency. Derek wants to obtain 150 policy of life insurance coverage for Becky's life and 10,000 on each of the children. This can be accomplished, Again, see, all these things are just comparing and comparing. We've discussed, we understood the principle, we understand what they want to do, but they are looking at, okay, this versus this or this versus that, okay? Now, moving on to beneficiary, okay? Based on understanding the client's situation, the agents may be able to recommend how the beneficiary designation should be structured. For example, is it going to be revocable or irrevocable? Okay, there are two types of beneficiaries. Again, note this, you're going to see this in the exams for sure. And then also know under which conditions should a beneficiary become revocable or irrevocable. We've treated beneficiary in previous chapters, okay? But just know that there are two types, okay? Now, now moving on to primary and contingent beneficiaries, okay? Who is a primary beneficiary and who is a contingent beneficiary? A primary beneficiary receives the death benefit so long as they survive the life insured. More than one primary beneficiary can be named, okay? But when you are naming your beneficiary, okay, it should aggregate to what? 100%. For example, if you have 4 children, you want to name them as beneficiary, you can decide how many percent you want to, allocate to them. You may choose to give one 50% and the other one whatever you want. But at the end of the day, it should total to 100%. Okay. Beneficiaries can include the estate of the policyholder when the purpose is to pay the tax liability on the estate. The surviving spouse can also be a beneficiary if the funds are used to replace a source of income. Any person the policyholder chooses to name can be the beneficiary. A trustee for minor children if the funds are to be used to support minor children. Now, still going back to our case study, with his 180,000 term life insurance policy, Derek could name Becky the beneficiary of 50,000 in order to reimburse his car loan and testamentary trust as the beneficiary of the 130,000 to provide child support for the for Jordan, with any remaining amount to be paid to Becky when Jordan turns 18. The agent should also encourage the applicants to specify one or more contingent beneficiaries. If the primary beneficiary does not survive the life insured, then the death benefit will pass to the contingent beneficiary. If no contingent beneficiary is named, then the death benefit will be paid to the policy holder. Or if the policy holder is also the life insured to his estate, okay, if the policy holder is the life insured, then the death benefit will be paid to his estate. Again, to our case study, if there is named Becky as his beneficiary, he may want to name a testamentary trust for the children as the contingent beneficiary. Because if he and Becky die simultaneously, then this will keep the fund from being part of his estate and being subject to probate. Okay? So we move on to revocable or irrevocable beneficiaries. In most Canadian jurisdictions, beneficiary designations are automatically revocable unless the application specifies otherwise. Okay, so it is the policyholder, and this is very important. Okay, you cannot sleep on this with clients. You cannot just forget this. The policyholder, the client must name or must designate what type of beneficiary. Is it revocable or irrevocable? Okay, in Quebec, if the policyholder designates his spouse as a beneficiary, it is automatically irrevocable unless the policyholder specifies that it is revocable when he first designates his spouse as his beneficiary. Naming an irrevocable beneficiary effectively puts control of that policy into the hands of the irrevocable beneficiary. An irrevocable beneficiary may be suitable when, again, this is an exam question, okay? And note this, under what circumstances, which situation can we consider irrevocable beneficiary to be necessary? Okay? The policyholder is named in a spousal or child support order. Okay, creditor protection is needed. Okay, a tax strategy is in connection with charitable giving. Okay, in this case now, if the court ordered insurance for child support, then the other spouse, okay, that this child support is having to, it needs to be paid to, will have to be named as irrevocable. The reason is because the other person don't want situation whereby when this new spouse marry now, they can kick him or her out of the life insurance without the beneficiary knowing. But if it's irrevocable, that cannot happen because you cannot do that. You can't change the beneficiary that is revocable without their permission, right? All right. So moving on to probate implications. What are the implications of going through probate? Okay, a death benefit that is paid to the estate becomes subject to probate. And this is situations that happen when people die intestate. When somebody dies without a will, all right? So their assets, everything automatically is going to go through probate, okay? Probate fees does not exist in Alberta or Quebec. It is good practice to name a beneficiary to avoid the death benefit being subject to probate fees. Also, when an estate is subject to probate, the content of the estate and the term of the will becomes public knowledge. Probate fees varies across jurisdictions, and the highest is 1.5%. Okay, now this is just probate fees. This is not even the legal fees that the lawyers will charge. And these lawyers, they can charge. So you don't even want to be in this situation, guys. The desire to avoid probate should never be a substitute for good planning. The desire to avoid probate should never be a substitute for good planning. What does this mean? Because me, I don't want to go through probate. So the desire to avoid probate, so I did, should not never be a substitute to good planning. The desire to avoid probate. Yes, I desire to avoid probate. And they are now saying it should not be a substitute to good planning. It shouldn't be a substitute. Shouldn't be substitute. Hmm. The desire to avoid probate should never be a substitute for good planning. So in other words, are they telling us that we should make
Shouldn't
a
be
full
considered.
planning?
Is it like shouldn't be considered or what?
No, I think it should be there. If exercising good planning should be as a standard, right? It should be our what we should aspire to achieve all the time, not just because we want to avoid probate. That's the understanding I'm trying to get from here, because she should never be a substitute. Should never be a substitute for good planning. I'll take a picture of this. Oh, where's my phone? I'll get more understanding of this and I'll share with you guys tomorrow. Okay?
Okay.
Because for me, always my desire for estate planning had always been so that I can avoid probate and all those kind of related stuff, right? But when I see this statement, it struck me. I'm like, really? So I'm very curious right now, and we'll talk about this tomorrow when I, did more findings. And I'm sure you guys will want to know more like myself too, right? Okay, moving on. Moving on. This is a very lengthy chapter. You can imagine sitting down reading this on your own. You would have thrown the book away by now. You would have thrown the book away and go and do something else. It's like, I cannot come and kill myself. What is this? But you see, but because we're here, right? You give each other that moral support. Can you imagine from 7, we've plowed through 2 hours now and we are still going. You see, that is the energy I'm talking about. You see, even me myself, I don't know what will keep me in one chair reading, and even like reading this line by line, because my brain is concentrating to analyze, to explain, and everything. Ah, it's something, guys. It's something, and I'm happy for all of you that are here. All of you has been here since the beginning. Nobody dropped. I mean, you guys are focused. You're committed to this. So you can imagine if we get 10 license into the team at the same time. That is big deal, right, guys? And plus that, we are learning together, supporting one another. Okay, we are almost done with chapter 11. So hang in there. We'll finish chapter 11. We take about 10 minutes break, and then we'll come back and finish chapter 12. Okay, guys? You guys are not talking to me. Oh
Okay,
my
sure.
goodness.
Sure.
Do you guys want to go and sleep after chapter 11? Huh? No one is talking to me anyways. Let's finish chapter 11 first, and then we'll decide. Okay, guys?
Side. Yeah.
Okay. Highlighting important clauses. Highlighting important clauses. And what are those important clauses? Anyways, when reviewing a new policy, the life agent should ensure that the policyholder is aware of and understands certain key provisions. These are covered in more details in the module ethics and professional practices. Okay. Now let's talk about exclusions. Exclusions is, we're not seeing exclusion for the first time. We've dealt with exclusions previously, but let's talk about it here that we are saying it. Agent has responsibility to review any policy exclusion with the clients and ensure that the clients understand that the death benefit will not be paid under those circumstances. All policies have 2-year exclusion period for death by suicide after the policy issue date. Again, for this one, you're going to see an example. Anyway, there's an example here. So let's go on. Or date of reinstatement for which the death benefit will not be paid. For example, Anne-Marie is an avid photographer and frequent traveler. When the insurance policy inquired about her travels, she had disclosed that her most recent places of travel includes Ethiopia, India, and South Africa. The policy was issued with an exclusion for death while traveling to Ethiopia because of the perceived high incidence of disease and conflict at that time. The death benefit will be paid as long as her death does not occur in Ethiopia and cannot be linked to an illness acquired from her travel there. Okay? Incontestability period or contestability. All right, let's talk about this one. The first 2 years of a life insurance contract, the insurance company can reevaluate its underwriting of the policy, and this is called what? Contestability period. Discovery of a material mistake in the first 2 years of the policy may be policy by the insurance company can lead to the company to have to void the policy, adjust the premium, or add an exclusion. Once the contestability period has expired, the policy is said to be incontestable, and the insurance company cannot cancel the policy for any reason other than missed premium or fraudulent misrepresentation. So they are just explaining two concepts to us here. The concept of contestability and incontestability period. Contestability period, contest, right? When you contest something, when you query something, right? When you argue something, you see, that's what this is talking about, right? So now, in the first 2 years, that is a contestability period of the contract. So that is the time frame that the insurance company have to query any information they must have gotten on a particular contract. Now, once the 2 years have lapsed, that contract moves into incontestability period mode. Okay. And at that point, the insurance company is now limited as to what they can do, except in the case of what? Misrepresentation or fraud. Those are the only grounds that they can use to void the policy, adjust the premium, or add an exclusion. Once this contestability period has expired, then the policy is said to be incontestable, and the insurance company cannot cancel the policy for any reasons other than missed premiums or fraudulent misrepresentation. Fraud voids a policy at any point it is discovered. So when it has to do with void, it's no question of contestability period or incontestability period. That one voids the contract at any time. If a policy has been cancelled, it can be reinstated by paying all outstanding premiums and any interest. There is also a requirement to prove insurability once the policy has been reinstated. The 2-year contestability period will also begin again. That is, somebody have a policy for 5 years and they missed premium, the policy was cancelled, then that policy can be reinstated. Okay. But what will happen is that if the person missed the premium for 5 months, they will have to pay that 5 months missed period for their policy to be reinstated, and they will have to provide evidence of insurability. Okay. But what this is telling us is that at that point, the contestability period will reset and start again. Even though they've had this policy for 5 years, but because it was cancelled and reinstated, they will, do the 2 years all over again. So we'll move on to what? The grace period. Okay. Let's talk about this grace period. The grace period in the life insurance contract is usually 30 or 31-day period after the premium is due. Okay. The premium must be paid before the end of the grace period, or else the policy lapses or cancelled. The death benefit minus the unpaid premium is paid in if death occurs during the grace period. Okay. Let's talk about reinstatement. Okay. As noted above, reinstatement of a policy may be possible when missed premium plus interest is paid and evidence of insurability is provided. Okay. A reinstated policy is preferred to be new policy because A reinstated policy is preferable to a new policy because its premium will be based on the life insured age when the policy was first issued. A new policy will be based on the life insured attained age at the time the new policy is issued. For example, Barry bought a 250,000 20-year renewable term life insurance policy when he was 38 years old, and the policy premiums were $35 per month. When Barry was 50, he missed 3 months' payments in a row, and the policy lapsed for 30 days after the first missed premium. When he discovered his error, Barry considered buying a new life insurance policy. He was shocked to learn that the premiums on the new policy will be $150 per month because the premiums will be based on his current attained age of 50. Fortunately for Barry, he was still in excellent health and he was able to reinstate his old policy by paying the 105 in missed premium plus accrued interest. Okay, that is pretty much straightforward. Let's talk about rights of rescission. Okay? There is a 10-day period following delivery of the policy in which the policyholder can change his or her mind and receive a full refund of the premium he has paid. Okay, so let me quickly explain this one. And then when you watch your chapter 10 video, you're going to see this one. This is referring to, you see, when a policy is delivered, first premium is taken, okay? This is telling us that the client have 10 days to review this policy and say, oh, I'm no longer doing again, okay? And the first month's premium that was taken will be returned. Expiry. All policy have an expiry date at which point the policy will cease, okay? All temporary insurance have expiration dates, okay? Surrender charges. A surrender charge may be applied to a UL policy if it is cancelled or partial withdrawal is taken. The insurance agent, the insurance agents to ensure that the clients understand the surrender charges that may be applied to a partial withdrawal is made or if the policy is cancelled. Okay. All right. Using illustration. Well, illustrations often accompany the application so that the insurance companies underwriters have a clear understanding of the insurance coverage is being requested. They show policy benefits and features in a table or similar format. A term insurance policy illustration shows the premium and the death benefit for each year, and that's it. However, a permanent policy illustration shows a premium, death benefit, dividend, mortality deductions, investment, account value based on blah, 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 and so on. The policies that are sensitive to investment performance will show at least two scenarios. That's universal life. You always have, oh my God, I can't wait for you guys to start looking at, all these illustrations. Okay. All right. So the scenarios are not predictions of performance. Okay. They're just possibilities. All right. And then the policyholder signs the illustration as an evidence that he or she understands what the illustration shows. And that brings us to the end of chapter 11. So with that, we've concluded chapter 11. Okay. And so now let's talk about chapter 12. I was thinking we could take a quick a quick 10 minutes break. You see, chapter 12 is just ongoing service. It's just all about ethics of business. And this is just going to like a free flow. There's no calculation, there's nothing. You guys going to enjoy it. What do you guys think?
Okay, we can take a 10 minutes break.
Yeah, let's take a 10 minutes break and then
Or 5?
we come back and get this done. All right. Thank you guys and see you in 10. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Now we are moving on to chapter 12, which will be speaking to ongoing service. Okay, monitoring changing client needs. How do we do that? How do we take care of our clients after the sale? This is what this is talking about. Okay, the need for insurance may change over time if personal circumstances change. Because the life insurance agent will need to provide ongoing service for clients. Some life events that may impact insurance needs may be new dependent, like now they have a new additional child or a new addition to the family, marriage. Maybe this person got this insurance when they were single, now they're married, or divorce, employment changes, new mortgage, acquiring a business, leaving Canada, you see, and update needs analysis and appropriate recommendation should always be what be provided to our clients. Okay. For me, for a new client, I do the first 6 months, I sit down with them, review their wherever. Then afterwards, I do annual review. Like this November and the first um 2 weeks of December are usually my review periods. Now, the thing I love about review is that it keeps you close with your client, and then the client now see what you're doing for them, and they even give you referral as well. Okay. In addition to the family, such as a new baby, usually increase the requirement for insurance coverage. Therefore, the life insured will want to ensure that their estate will be able to provide for that dependent in event of his or her death. There is another person to consider, okay, in the estate planning process. That is the new addition, right? Okay, a parent may wish to insure the new family member by either buying a new policy or by adding the family rider to an existing policy. Those are the options, okay? And a baby is automatically covered under existing policy that have a family rider. Okay, all the child needs to do is to be 15 years old and above after birth. And then the next ongoing service that we might look into is marriage. All right. See, marriage may call for the following insurance related changes: obtaining a new policy on the life of a new spouse, or changing the beneficiary designation in an existing policy to a new spouse. You see, when somebody wasn't married and they took a life insurance, maybe they named their parents as their beneficiary. And now that they are married, they might want to name their spouse as the beneficiary. So these are typical situations that we see all the time. Okay. Um, an increase in the death benefit of an existing policy to ensure that enough financial support can continue in the event of the life insured death. And then the next one is divorce. Okay. Now, note that divorce automatically revokes an spouse's entitlement under an existing will. It does not automatically revoke beneficiary designation. Let's take a deep breath on that first. Do you guys get this one? Wow. You see why ongoing service to our client is very important. You see, you're sitting down with a client and he's telling you about his relationship breakdown with his spouse and now become ex-spouse, right? In the case of divorce, that revoke of married relationship automatically revokes the rights of that spouse to the will and every other thing. But when it comes to life insurance, it does not. So you'll be able to bring value to this client. Okay, but have we done any update on your life insurance beneficiary? The person will not say no, right? And then, boom, there and then you have to complete the paperwork if that's what the person's wishes, right? Otherwise, the person will pass away. The current wife may not even know, will still be there rejoicing that there's life insurance, and that if the person passes away, she'll be sorted. Only for another person entirely to now show face as the beneficiary because of what they missed to change. Very important, okay? Except Quebec, where pre-divorce beneficiary designation on a life insurance policy is nullified upon divorce. You know, Quebec, their own ways are different. Everything Quebec is on their own. In all other jurisdictions, divorce may call for former spouse to be changed as beneficiary. All right. If spousal support is required as part of a settlement agreement, often the agreement will specify that a spouse obtain a life insurance policy to ensure that the support obligation continue to be well satisfied in the event that the spouse, in the event of that spouse's death, to protect the recipient spouse or child. Additional conditions may also be imposed as part of the agreement, such as the spouse cannot allow the policy to lapse or that the beneficiary designation must be irrevocable. I mentioned this earlier, right? Already, we're moving on to employment changes. What happens if this person have changed employment? Well, whenever there's a change in employment, insurance needs should be reviewed. A change of employer suggests a comparison of the previous group coverage with the new coverage to identify whether there are any declines or gaps in coverage. An opportunity to convert group coverage to an individual policy, usually within 30 days of leaving the group plan. Okay, a change in an income suggests a review of the amount of insurance coverage that is in place, whether the insurance needs have been determined based on human capital approach. And also a change in job function suggests the possibility for an improvement in premium rating. Again, we see all this, I think in chapter 9 also. Yeah, we saw that in chapter 9. So these are the things that we can review when sitting down with our client during an ongoing service, wherever. Now, a new mortgage. You see, a lender may require insurance on a mortgage as a condition for the mortgage. Families may have to buy a personally held insurance policy with enough coverage to pay off the mortgage to the lender in the event of death of the income earning spouse. Again, we see this a lot. You see, when you are going to the bank to take mortgage, the bank will ask you for mortgage insurance, right? So the smart things to do is to take your own life insurance. And when it's verified that you have life insurance, then the bank will just be fine. Okay. Then another changes that may occur, which why review always is important, is what acquiring a business. A person who starts a new business or buys an existing business or in partnership will want to buy a life insurance to ensure appropriate coverage is in place for a buy-sell agreement or for a key employee, to protect wealth from creditors or to use as collateral if needed to secure a business loan. Okay, acquiring a business. We've talked about that. Then we'll move on to leaving Canada. What if you see somebody have insurance and they are leaving Canada? What happened? I'm sure we all are curious to know this one, right? You see, a policy review is essential if there will be a relocation or move abroad that will cause the individual to cease from being a Canadian resident Some policies are only valid if the life insured is resident in Canada. Also, some policies may include an exclusion if death occurs outside of Canada. So having a continuous public policy reviews will give us an insight of, you see, where the client's head is at and what they are planning to do, and we may be able to also guide them appropriately. Okay. Now we go on to updated needs analysis and recommendations. Let's talk about this one. Whenever there is a change in the circumstances of the policyholder or the life insured, the agent should review the previous needs analysis. It should be revised to reflect all the changes in the policyholder situation. In other words, the needs analysis must be based on current needs, not updated needs. Okay, changes that may need to be addressed include replacing a policy, converting a policy from temp to permanent. I've had to do this on several occasions because I've had clients, based on their current financial situations, we've had to do some term insurance combined with some um, permanent insurance. For example, I had a client that have 500,000 total coverage, 300,000 term for 25 years, and 200,000 permanent. But 2 years down the line, during our review, and then we found out that, oh, their income have increased. Now they can have some free up cash flow that they can then convert the whole policy to UL. And that was what we did, right? Without policy review, we couldn't have noticed those kind of cash flow that they can put to us. Now they have permanent insurance of 500,000. Okay. Now, revising a policy to include riders, modify coverage or life insurance, that we could do as well, changing the beneficiary designations. All right. Amending policies. Moving on to amending a policy. Under what circumstances? There are two categories of changes that could be made to an existing life insurance policy. Number one, those that requires underwriting, and number two, those for which underwriting is not required. Okay, and let's look at administrative changes. Now, administrative changes do not change the underwriting on the policy. Administrative changes do not change the underwriting on the policy. A policyholder can make changes by contacting the insurance company. Such changes include, okay, these are administrative changes, and as a result, this one does not require underwriting. Okay, changes to the name of the policyholder and beneficiaries due to marriage or divorce. This one does not require underwriting. Changes to mail address. This one, I do this all the time. When client buy a new home, they move to their new home, I just call, and then a mailing address is updated. Changes to beneficiary designations, whether it's changes from revocable to irrevocable, revocable, we do that. No underwriting is required. Changes to frequency of premium. Maybe your premium may be monthly before, now clients want it annually or stuff like that, or changes to investment funds. No underwriting is required. However, there are changes that requires underwriting. And what are those changes? Let's talk about this one. Underwriting must be involved for the following types of changes. Adding a life insured, adding riders or supplementary benefits. We know what it means to add a life insured, right? Maybe it was just one person on the policy before. Now the man is married. Now he's adding his wife as a joint policy. So that requires underwriting. Adding a rider, you see, adding a rider is maybe where a family have an addition in, maybe have a new child, they want to add that child. There might be, underwriting. Increase to the coverage, okay? If they are increasing their coverage, maybe they have 500,000 before, now they are making it 1,000,000, that will require underwriting. Changes to the type of death benefits. Okay, now there are different types of benefit. We've talked about death benefit. There's level death benefit. There's increasing death benefit. We dealt with. We broke it down in the past classes. So, so that's required. And then changes to dividend options on a par policy or to a paid up addition. See, when you see dividend, it's not all policies that pays dividend. The only policy that pay dividend is participating whole life policies. Let's move on to renewing a policy. Renewing a policy. Okay. How does that work? Let's talk about it. A renewable term policy will renew at the end of each term automatically. That is a renewable term policy. Okay. Does not require evidence of insurability. By now, we know what evidence of. Then provide a schedule of guaranteed renewal rates when the policy is issued. Okay, increase premium to reflect the age of the life insured on the renewal date. For example, Kevin bought 500,000 year renewal term insurance policy when he was 35 old, and the initial premium were 450 per year. So the policy will automatically renew at 45, 55, and 65, with annual premium respectively of 2250, 5250, 13,000. That's 10 policy for you. Okay. Moving on, renewable policies are more subject to adverse selection than other types of policies. This leads to the guaranteed renewal rate being higher than if the policyholder were to obtain a new policy. Adverse selection is when those who would not qualify for a new policy are more likely to renew the policy than those in good health. Okay, let's talk about replacing a policy. Well, life insurance agents face a potential conflict of interest due to the commission they earn when a new policy replaces an existing policy. Life insurance agents have a fiduciary duty to the client that requires the recommendation of a policy replacement to be in the best interest of the policyholder. Well, for me, I've had opportunity to replace several policies, but I don't do that based on my own personal self-gains. Okay, I review the policies, I give my honest and independent opinion, and then I show the client the options. And oftentimes, when a client sees a better option, they go for it. Okay, let's talking about shunning and twisting. So this shunning and twisting is an exam question. So you get to note this one. If you're sleeping, wake up. Wakey, wakey. All right. Shunning and twisting. An agent must not misrepresent, provide incomplete information, or make incorrect statement to a policyholder to convince him to replace one policy with another. Use the cash value from one policy to buy another. So doing any of the above is breach of the life insurance agent's fiduciary duty. So the following two deceitful practices are prohibited by life insurance agents. Shunning occurs when a policyholder is persuaded to replace one policy with another at the same insurance company. Okay, that is shunning. You see, when an agent persuades a client to replace with the same insurance company, that is shunning, shunning, shunning. Okay, so remember, shunning, we have twisting. The twisting occurs when the policy is replaced with another at a different insurance company. So listen, how do you know the two? So the two is all about replacing an existing policy. It's just that one is replaced by the same insurance company. And then the second one is replaced by a different company. So look at shunning as you are shunning an existing policy and taking a new one from the same insurance company. And twisting, you are changing. I always use my hand like this to demonstrate twisting. That is, you are moving to a different insurance company, not the same. You understand? It's a different. So use that to remember. If that helps you, fine. Otherwise, figure, okay, shunning, twisting, shunning, replacing in the same company, twisting, replacing in a two different companies. Okay? Hope that helps. Disclosure requirements. Let's talk about that one. In most jurisdictions, the policy replacement requires the policyholder to sign a life insurance replacement declarations. We call it LIRD form. Okay, so this LIRD form is, because of time, I would have showed you guys the live form. Again, that's why you need to do your practical. You need to go on field training. We have this in Experior back office. Okay, the life insurance replacement declaration form, okay, ask questions about the existing policy as well as the advantages and disadvantages of the new policy. The life insurance replacement declarations must be accompanied by a written explanation about the reason for the policy replacement, the benefits the policyholder will receive from the new policy, and the description of any situation when the benefits might not be paid under the new policy. Okay, in Quebec, the notice of replacement of life insurance of person's contract is used instead of anyways, Quebec, make me know. So we move on to standard life insurance replacement declarations. Okay, remember shunning, remember twisting. Okay, shunning, same life insurance company, twisting, replacing with a different life insurance company. We are twisting. All right, let's talk about life insurance replacement declarations. Do not cancel your existing policy until the new policy is in force and you accept it. Yes, this is a rule of thumb, okay? Even if we are replacing existing policy, we always tell clients, no, don't cancel the existing one until the new one is issued. Because even if you apply for a new policy, what if it wasn't issued and you have canceled the existing one? It means the client now do not have insurance. So we don't want that to happen. Therefore, before you cancel life insurance policy, you should have answers to the questions below. Ask any insurance agent or broker or an independent person for help if you need, okay? Questions about your present life insurance policies. Why do you want to replace your policy? So these are the typical questions that we see on LIRD. And LIRD again stands for Life Insurance Replacement Declarations. So we ask clients this: why do you want to replace your insurance policy? Is a new policy better, and how? Should you just buy more insurance or change your policy? How much would these changes cost? When should you cancel your present policy? When is your next annual dividend paid? Will the timing affect your cancellation charges? Oftentimes the answer is no, right? Will you pay more income tax if you cancel your policy? Nah. All right. So questions on the advantages and disadvantages of new life insurance. Okay, so this new one, what are the benefits to the client? All right. Do you understand the type of insurance policy you are buying? That's a question to the client. Okay. Is it a term life, whole life, or universal life insurance policy? You should know the difference. That's why for me, I always explain everything to the client. Okay. Are there times when the new policy will not pay all the benefits that your present policy does? Again, there's an example to that effect there. Okay. Question number 3, will the new policy pays as much as your present one? All right. So these are all the questions. Okay. Very important. Please ensure that the agent or broker provides you with copies of the written explanation of the advantages and disadvantages of replacing your life insurance policy with a new policy. Okay, so these are the, you see, because all these LIR, the ones we complete, we as a broker, we sign, the client signs, okay? And then that is a testament that we've gone through everything with the client, okay? All right, moving on to canceling the contract being replaced. Canceling the contract being replaced. The new policy must be issued, delivered, and accepted before the old policy is cancelled. Otherwise, a gap in coverage could occur. And if the old policy is cancelled too soon and temporarily leaves the life insured with no insurance coverage, if the life insured were to die during that period of no coverage, there is no death benefit to be paid. That would be so pathetic, right? All right, moving on to cancelling a policy. The policy holder may cancel a policy whenever he chooses and for whatever reason, such as he does no longer need a policy protection. He needs a different types of policy, or he could obtain a better rate with a new policy, all right, by doing his comparison with the existing one. He can no longer afford the premium. These are reasons why people might need to cancel their policy, okay? Not paying premium will cancel a term policy immediately. A whole life or universal life will benefit from what we call automatic premium one. Okay, it's better for a policyholder to cancel the policy in writing by providing all pertinent details, such as the policy number, to ensure the cancellation occurs as desired. A prorated portion of the premiums paid may be refunded at the time of cancellation. All right. Surrendering a policy. Let's talk about this one. A policy holder's cancellation of a whole life policy or a universal life policy is commonly referred to as a fully surrendering the policy. Okay? Upon surrender, a policy holder gives up all rights, including the death benefits under the contract. Withdrawal from a policy cash surrender value is considered a partial surrender of the policy. With partial surrenders, the policy remains in effect and a death benefit will be paid if the life insured dies after the withdrawal. However, a partial surrender may result in a policy taxable gain upon which the policyholder will be taxed. Let's moving on to policy assignments. Policy assignments. Let's talk about that one. Well, a policy assignment, a policyholder can choose to assign some or all of his rights under an insurance policy to another person. That is called policy assignment. Then we have what we call absolute policy assignment and partial policy assignment. All right. In the case of an absolute policy assignment, transfers legal title and all rights and obligations of the policy from the policyholder to the assignee or recipient, relinquishing all further control or financial interest in the policy. That is called absolute policy assignment. That is, you transfer everything, all the rights, you relinquish everything, transfer everything, everything to another person. However, partial. Okay, so the policy typically specifies the requirements for completing an absolute assignment. An absolute assignment is considered a deemed disposition, which could lead to a taxable income for the tax holder, sorry, for the policy holder. However, a partial policy assignment in all of Canada except Quebec is the use of a life insurance policy to secure a loan requires a policyholder to execute a collateral assignment. Okay, it takes the form of a partial assignment where the policy holder continues to own the policy but is restricted from any action that could reduce the value of the policy, such as making withdrawal. All right, this is pretty much self-explained, right? So when a life insured dies, if the policy loan is still outstanding, then the lender has first right of the death benefit upon up to the amount of the loan outstanding. Okay, so let me explain this one. What we're looking at, I'm sorry, I say partial policy assignment is, let's say I have a policy and the death benefit is 1 million. Okay, and then this policy that I have 200,000 cash value. All right, I could assign my policy, to me, to a lender and take 200,000 in policy loan from the lender. Okay, so now because I have surrendered this due to this partial um, policy assignment, I might not be able to make further financial decision to this account. And if death were to occur, the death benefit that will be paid, okay, is no longer going to be 1.2 million. Why? Because the 200,000 will be paid to the lender, and then beneficiary will get what? $1 million. Okay, that's what that is speaking about. And then they'll come and tell us about Quebec again. What concerns us with Quebec? Anyways, let's look at claims. Claims process. What are the process of claims? When the life insured dies, the beneficiary or the estate, if no beneficiary is named, becomes the claimant and comes forward to receive the death benefits. And what is our role in all this as an agent? Let's talk about our own role in all this. See, I told you guys this chapter is pretty much straightforward, right? It's flowing. It's flowing like flow, right? Well, the life agent's role is to assist with the claim process in a timely and sensitive manner. This may include providing and filling out forms as well as choosing a settlement option. It is important that the agent not give the claimant the impression that the agent is the one who decides whether the claim will be paid or that the payment is guaranteed. Okay, so when somebody passes away, we as the agent, we help, the clients to fill out the forms. Okay, completed claims form. Well, the agent may provide the claim form and help the claimant complete the form. Now, the completed form and additional required documentations are sent to the claim examiner at the insurance company. All right. Then the next thing is to review the policy status. What is the status of this policy? One of the first thing the claims examiner must do is to verify that the policy was in force at the time of death. Okay. And then secondly, if the policy may not be in force and hence, and the death benefit will not be paid. And if the policy lapsed or was surrendered or expired in the case of term policy. All right. Then another requirement will be proof of death. Okay, there's going to be need for proof of death. Proof of death must be accompanied by the claim form and is used to ensure that the deceased was the life insured under the policy. Proof of death is usually provided in the form of one or more of death certificate or funeral director certificate or coroner's reports. Wow. Okay. I think that one is pretty much straightforward. And the three method of proof of death is death certificate, funeral director certificate, and then coroner's report. Now, letters probate. The claims examiner may request a copy of the life insured probated will if the estate is named as the beneficiary of the policy. A probate will also be requested if the named beneficiary is deceased. Wow. As part of the probate process, a letters probate is issued by a court which verifies that the will of the deceased is valid and that the executor has the authority to administer or act on behalf of the estate. If the life insured dies without a will, the court appoints an administrator and issues a letter of administration which confirms the administrator's authority. Hey, wow. Imagine a random person coming to administer someone else's estate. Is that not pathetic? A probate fees are a charged against the estate when letters, probate, and letters of administration are issued by the court. In Quebec, the claims adjuster will request a copy of the notarial will and the will search certificate, which establishes that the will received is the last will and the testament of the deceased. If the will is handwritten or made in the presence of witnesses, it must be probated by a notary or by the Superior Court of Quebec, who, upon completion of the, why am I even reading Quebec, sir? Because they don't test us on Quebec, okay? They're only just putting it us here for knowledge sake, so there's no point. Anyways, let's take a look at attending physician statement. This is called APS, okay? Usually, in the case of large claims, an attending physician statement, APS, will be requested to confirm the cause of death and verify the medical information used that was used to underwrite and issue the policy. If the cause of death is suicide and the suicide occurred within 2 years, suicide exclusion period, then the claim will be denied and the death benefit will not be paid. Okay? If death was the result of an activity or cause listed in the policy as an exclusion, then the claim will be denied and the death benefit will not be paid. Proof of age and gender. A birth certificate may be requested to prove age and gender. A discrepancy in age from what was reported on the application may result in an adjustment of the death benefit. Confirmation of beneficiaries. Moving on. Okay. A claim examiner will need to confirm that the claimant is the beneficiary named in the policy, as on record at the insurance company, or as directed in the will of the policyholder. If a named beneficiary has died before the claim is made for the life insured, the claim examiner will require proof of death before the death benefit is paid to the contingent beneficiary or the estate if no contingent beneficiary has been named. When a class of people is named as beneficiary, the insurance company will ensure that all members of the class has been identified before the death benefit is paid out. For example, naming all my grandchildren will require all grandchildren to be identified in order to ensure they are all alive and all included in the distribution. Wow. Are you guys following? That again is pretty much straightforward. Okay. Someone have asked me before that when we the way we put down beneficiaries is just, let me open here and read it to you guys. Okay, so for beneficiary, we just put in their first name and last name, and then beneficiaries take it in relation to the life insured, whether it's common law spouse, married, or others you have to specify. So if it's child, you put child there. If it is brother, put brother there, right? And the beneficiary designation, whether it's revocable or irrevocable. Okay. So now someone have asked me, but what if there are many similar names in the family? How would this particular person, because there's no phone number, there's no email address, that is why it's important to have a will. Because when you name somebody as your beneficiary, then the onus is on you to go into your will now and say, okay, this person is named as my beneficiary for this life insurance. Face amount is this. Contact information. It should be in your will. Okay? All right. So let's move on to group life insurance claim. Group life insurance claim. We are making progress, guys. Don't worry, we'll be done with this chapter before you know it. And we'll be glad we did. Okay. Group life insurance claims are processed in much the same way, only the plan administrator rather than life agent will facilitate the claim process. In the case of an employer-sponsored group plan, the claim examiner will confirm that the deceased person was in fact covered under the plan. He may not be covered if he had yet not satisfied the plan's waiting period, or if he had terminated employment prior to death. Group creditor insurance may be subject to post-claim underwriting. And this is the part that many people don't know. You see, the group creditor insurance is your mortgage insurance that you take from the bank. The underwriting is done after the fact. When claim, oh, imagine somebody has died, you are there thinking that, oh, we're going to receive money to pay for the outstanding mortgage, only to be told that the mortgage is not going to be paid because they don't do underwriting at the beginning. Underwriting is done at the back end. That's a story for another day. Let's move on to factors that could vary the payment upon death. What are those factors that could vary the payment of death benefit upon death? It is possible for the amount paid out to the beneficiary upon death could be more or less than the policy's face amount due to a number of reasons. Number one, participating whole life policies. Depending on the payment option selected when the policy was set up, participating whole life policy dividends can affect the death benefit. All right. Paid up addition can do the same, or the accumulation options, okay, will also increase death benefit. Now, the term option will temporarily increase the death benefit if death occurs during that term period. Adjustable whole life policy. With an adjustable whole life policy, the death benefit and premiums are guaranteed for a specified period of time. Talking about universal life policies have several death benefit options, including level death benefit plus account value, and death benefit plus cumulative fund and index death benefit. All these, we've talked about this in the previous chapters. Okay. Let's move on to what? Misstatement of age. Misstatement of age. What happens? At the time of the claim, if the insurance company discovers that the insured age was fraudulently misstated on the application, the policy will be voided and the claims will be denied. Hey, the onus is on the insurance company to prove that the misstatement was fraudulent. However, if the misstatement of the age was a mistake, then the death benefit will be paid, but will be adjusted to the appropriate coverage that, based on the premium paid, will have been purchased. Okay? Again, they are coming to tell us about Quebec. We're not interested about Quebec. We move. Misstatement of gender. How does somebody misstate gender? There's nothing we cannot see in this. Like misstatement of age. The policy will be voided if it is discovered at the time of the claim that the insured gender was fraudulently misstated. Hey, this one will be a serious matter. Gender. Well, the onus is on the insurance company, again, like the age situation, to prove that the misstatement was fraudulent. If the misstatement was not fraudulent, then the death benefit will be adjusted to what it would have been paid based on premiums paid. Again, this is the example for that misstatement original. That's serious. Anyways, policy assigned as collateral. Let's talk about this one. You see, when a collateral assignment has been made and the life insured dies, the insurance company will pay the outstanding balance on the loan from the death benefit to the lender and pay the remaining balance to the beneficiary. Yes, you guys, you remember the example I made, where somebody have 1 million policy, right? If they have 1 million policy and they are owing, they have 1.2 and they are owing 200 or 500, first of all, the creditor will be settled first. And then whatever is remaining will then be paid to the beneficiary. Okay? Outstanding policy loan. When a policy loan has been taken from, this is equally similar to policy assigned as collateral. All right. Also, for outstanding policy loan, when a policy loan has been taken from a cash surrender value of a policy and the balance is still outstanding at the time of the insured death, then the death benefit is reduced by the outstanding amount of the loan plus accrued interest, as we can see in this example. All right, moving on to unpaid premium. Ooh, we are getting there. Almost, guys, hanging there with me, okay? Unpaid premiums. When a premium has been missed and the life insured dies during the grace period, well, the death benefit is reduced by the amount of the unpaid period, and then the remainder will be paid to the beneficiary. Settlement option. Now, the lump sum payment is one settlement option. However, there are others such as term setting or life annuity, which pays a fixed amount of income for a specified period of time or for a life, depending on the type of annuities. Annuities are discussed in more detail in segregated funds. I said it. Okay? The agent can provide these options when claim is made. Time requirements. Let's talk about this one. Okay, claims can be made anytime after death, as long as the policy was valid at the time of death and the life insures death. At the time of the life insurance death, the death benefit will be paid plus interest. The life insurance company could pay the death benefit within a couple of days or several months. In case of an investigation, then the claim must be paid within 30 days of submission of supporting documents and investigation. taxation. All right, we talk about tax treatment of death benefit. Well, death benefit of a personally held life insurance is received tax-free 100% by the beneficiary and does not create taxable income for deceased. The death benefit includes the entire amount. The death benefit of a group life insurance policy is received also tax-free by the beneficiary and does not create a taxable income for the deceased, regardless of whether the employee or the employer paid the premium. When life insurance is owned by a corporation, then the death benefit is received tax-free by the corporation, and some or all of the benefit is credited to its capital dividend account. The corporation, as instructed by the board of directors, pays out a tax-free dividend from the capital dividend account to the shareholder. We have come to the end of life insurance. Woo, we made it, guys. We made it. We made it.